Our Europe correspondent Samantha Hawley, who is outside Buckingham Palace. Now, Sam, news of Prince Philip's passing was announced at around midday UK time today. Talk us through what happened.
Well, dead on midday, the flag, Union Jack behind me, was lowered to half-mast, and then very shortly after that came the statement that Prince Philip had passed away at Windsor Castle this morning. So a very sad announcement, one that wasn't really expected, I don't think, because the Prince had been released from hospital to go back to Windsor Castle about a month ago, and so I think there was some hope that he had recovered from the illness that had kept him there for almost a month, but that wasn't to be. Since then, we've had, of course, a large media contingent turn up here, but we have seen crowds coming to Buckingham Palace to pay their respects. Now, as you heard before, there was a notice that was put up on the gates of Buckingham Palace announcing the death of Prince Philip. That has now actually been removed because they want to stop people coming down here. They've actually said, Buckingham Palace, please don't come, go online instead and pay tribute to the Duke of Edinburgh that way. And that's all, of course, because of COVID. So things are very different today than they would have been if he'd died outside of this pandemic. But because of the pandemic, things will be very different. Now, there'll be many people that would want to come down here, I think. But I think we can see by the crowds that most people, for now, are staying away. A few people are coming and putting flowers down and paying their respects. But I think the crowd would have been far larger if we weren't in the middle of this pandemic.
And Sam, what has the atmosphere been like? You've been there pretty much all morning and throughout the afternoon. Tell us a bit more of what you're seeing there.
Well, I think, people are just genuinely sad. It comes after a very sad year. The UK has suffered dreadfully during this pandemic. There's been more than 130,000 deaths, and I think this just adds to that feeling of grief, really. And I think people are just genuinely upset by the news. They're saddened by it, and I think everyone also has in their thoughts the Queen and her feelings today. A couple for more than 70 years. They first met when Queen Elizabeth, a princess then, of course, was just 13. So that's a pretty long relationship, and I think the thoughts of the nation are with her as well, and of course saddened by the death of Prince Philip, who's been a rock, I think, for society and for the royal family, of course, but for society as a whole for a very, very long time. The longest serving consort, of course, the British people have ever had. And his age just means that most of this nation has only ever known him to be beside the Queen, and not having him there anymore, I think, will take a little bit of time to get used to.
And Sam, we've just heard from Nick that the College of Arms has confirmed that there won't be a state funeral. Prince Philip will not lie in state but lie in rest, and the funeral service will be held at St George's Chapel at Windsor Castle. So a much smaller affair than one would expect. Are you surprised by it, or did we kind of expect it because it was in line with his wishes?
Well, I think we expected it because of COVID. So we knew that there was a plan in place for when Prince Philip died. It was very extensive. And of course, it involved London. And I think significantly what we've seen now is that everything will revolve around Windsor. So the coffin will not come to London. That will disappoint many people, I think, because people would have wanted to line the streets. They would have wanted to be there to pay their respects as that coffin went past them, and they're not going to be able to do that anymore. And I suspect the royal family has done that for a reason, and that's because, of course, of COVID. So the body will remain in Windsor. It will lie in rest at Windsor during this period of mourning, which has now begun, until the funeral. And again, when the funeral is held, the Buckingham Palace is saying, please don't come out. It will be televised, we suspect. So don't come out. You'll need to watch it at home. And that all has to do with COVID. And I think that will be very disappointing for a lot of people, that they can't come out, pay their respects, and lay flowers and be there in Windsor when the funeral takes place. But I guess that is the world that we're living in at the moment. This is a nation still in lockdown, although restrictions will start to lift on Monday. But there's still that fear that the virus will spread, and that's what they don't want to see happen.
Indeed, extraordinary times. Samantha Hawley, thanks so much for that update.